Hey there, hunting family. Get ready for an episode that's going to take us on a journey through time and distance. We're thrilled to bring to you the legendary Buck Mentzer today, sharing tales of our early days and deer drives and heart-pounding moments running down deer from behind. We grew up hunting together, got a lot of memories hunting and just growing up together as young lads. So this is going to be a fun one. Walk down memory lane with one another, sharing some of these stories with the next generation who are with us. So I hope you guys are excited for this guest that we got coming up. He's going to be unveiling a couple of secrets that he carries. He's been a successful outdoorsman for many, many years, and just really excited to have him on. So join us for some laughter, nostalgia, and the spirit of the hunt. Buckle up, hunting family, because this episode of Tracks and Tackle is an adventure like no other. Subscribe to us, give us a 5-star review, and I hope you're ready. Let's go. And just want to say, hey, hunting family, welcome for another episode of Tracks and Tackle. This week we have one of my childhood best friends, family member, another person of the Mentzer lineage. He's got the same DNA. He's my cousin, Buck Mentzer, and we were just talking. We grew up together, and we were sort of whatever we did. I want to say 95%, like that's a high percentage. 95% of the time we were together. I was at your house, you were at my place. We pretty much lived together, and we lived close enough to one another that it wasn't one of those things. They say now how back in the day when the street lights would come on, you knew it was time to go home. Well, we didn't have no street lights. We just kept on going. Yeah. So we were together. We grew up together and we cut our teeth on hunting together. Your family and my family are we have that relation. And so your uncles and grandfather like instilled things into me and taught me the right way to do things and stuff. My dad and my brother, instilled things into you. And so it's been a while, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So got the Hollywood horse with us. Go ahead, man. I don't want to do all the talking. So
we're in the house. We're just excited here. Got a few stories to tell and get clarity. I heard a couple of different tales from different people, but we're just here to get some truth. Or I don't know if that's the right word, but
we'll probably muddy the water and stir it up a little more for you at this point.
Right. Can you get the water any more muddy? The reality is we were all going to, I don't know about you, but we were going to go to the camp up to our cabin this weekend. We're going to do some shed hunting, get the cameras up, and they're calling for rain. So we're like, man, what a day for recording. So we were going to record either way, right? And then I got this text during the week, and it's Buck, and he's like, hey man, I'm available. So because I've been trying here for a month or so, we've been just sort of kicking it back and forth, trying to get together. So. Yeah, man, why don't you just start off? Give me a little bit of your background. So, I mean, we know you, but anybody listening, tell us who you are and like how you got introduced to the sport of hunting.
So, I guess similar to these guys, I mean, I was sort of born into it.
Right.
The family did it. It was something the whole family did. When I was young, we had, Dad and I went to a hunting camp in Bedford. It wasn't our camp, but it was a group of guys that I went to school with the kids. Dad was friends with the dad. The families all knew each other. And that was really cool. And I guess kind of as everything changes, that kind of stopped as the kids got older and got away. The older guys didn't come anymore. And, but it really got me into it at a young age because of that experience, You sit there and you listen to, we call them the old timers, and tell their stories, and you laughed. And, I can remember being a 12-year-old kid thinking, man, these guys are crazy. And now, I'm sitting here 28 years later going, they weren't crazy. Like this stuff, you spend enough time in the woods, you will see it and it'll happen.
Right.
It's the truth. So, I mean, it's definitely kind of a way of life.
Yeah. For us, it definitely is.
Yeah.
You don't go through fall and winter without spending some time outdoors.
Yeah. When it was hunting season growing up, you hunted. That's what
right.
you did. We hunted like it was our job. We missed work, we missed school, whatever it took. Like when it was time to go hunting, we went hunting.
That's the interesting thing, because I know, like, growing up, we all have like a construction background. We were, and so like the months leading, like September, August, like leading up to October, November, we were trying to make hay to get everything done, get like all the jobs and projects done that we could, so that there was going to be a lull come November into December, work was going to stop.
Yeah.
And that,
yeah. I can remember my grandfather telling customers, well, whatever we get done by Thanksgiving is probably all that's going to happen for the next 2 weeks. You're not going to see a whole lot of us, and we did, like say, we hunted like it was our job. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what we did.
Yeah. But that's how, like, we cut our teeth on that, because we were the young guys in that group.
Yeah.
And like you said, when going up and getting into like a hunting community, being part of a hunting club, like having friends to hunt with is so much better. That you can go out and try your hand at it, but if you don't have somebody to share the stories with, if you don't have somebody to like share the memories with, it's not the same.
Yeah, and and I guess I would have probably been like 14, 15 years old. I had been hunting for a couple of years. I really got into driving with the local group around home, and that's where we hunted together.
Right.
There was a lot of good memories from there. Your dad, my grandfather, my dad. The uncles. Your brother.
Yep.
Family reunion every time.
Yeah,
it literally was
showing up on Wednesday morning. To start getting the deer drives together, because we never drove on the first couple of days. Let everybody do their thing, and then once it was time to do the deer drives, everybody rolled in. Most of the time it was at my dad's place. That was kind of the meeting. That was the meeting house, and everyone's telling the first 2 day story. This is what happened. This is what we've seen. Listen to everybody. The guys with the frustrations that are ready to just go out and whatever they see is dying today. Like, we're not worried about what it is. And we're going back before antler restrictions, so. Sometimes by Wednesday or Thursday, some of them guys that had been in the woods for 2 days and hadn't seen nothing but the bottom of their potato chip bag, they were
ready. Itchy trigger finger.
Yeah, they had an itchy trigger finger, and
we had a short leash, man, because it would be like 2 days. Like we gave a short clock, 2 days of sitting still.
Yeah,
and then we were coming together as a group. And I don't know, I'm sure there are groups that still do that, go out and drive and everything. I know we don't do it like we used to, because everybody's older, and farms change, and ownership, like just the properties to do it. You don't have the opportunities that we used to. But we really cut our teeth on that, and that's what got us going. And it was cold.
Yeah, and it was cold then, so you could actually put enough clothes on to beat the briars down, to beat through the briars. Anymore, although colder it gets in deer season, you wouldn't make it. I mean, I can remember shredding Carhartt coats, like in a year, a brand new Carhartt coat is gone, just from beating the brush, so these old guys could miss all the deer. And my grandfather was famous for it. You would come out of a drive, and he just got done shooting 6 times, and you're thinking, man, you're in there hooping and hollering, we're having a good time, like, man, we got the deer out. There's going to be deer laying out here. And we get out there to hear, well, that was fun, boys. They went this way. Let's go. Yeah. What do you mean they went this way? Where were you shooting? Well, it was fun. Let's do it again.
So Brady, tell Buck the story.
Was it Red River?
Yeah. So we're like introducing him to like a lot of old John Wayne Western movies and stuff like that. And, so we go to cabin, you pop in a DVD and you watch a Western or something like that. And that's, we call it superstition, call it
lucky charm. Anytime we watch a John Wayne movie, we had some luck. But there's some good quotes through some of the movies, man. I get why Lon here, and I don't know, you watch Westerns at home?
Sometimes.
All right. They're not my cup of tea, but up at camp when there's nothing, I sit down and actually pay attention. But the gist of it was, two of the gunmen. They were shooting, and one guy's out there, and he comes back. What was it? It was, those were some of the two best shooters that I've ever seen. And the other guys, well, what were they doing? Having fun. They heard all the gunshots. Well, what were they doing making all that racket? They were just having fun. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At the end, them guys, they were laughing and having a good time. And, there was days where it was very disheartening. Like you're bleeding, you got briars stuck in your ear, your hands are bleeding, you're hurt, and they're still laughing, and we still did it. We did it like it was our job.
Yeah.
But we woke up the next morning and we were having fun. We were, man, there's so many stories and so many different things that from doing that, and it was a different time. Like you said, we don't really do it like we used to. And a lot of that's just change of the area. And, I know, I shot a lot of deer I would never shoot sitting in a tree stand doing that.
No kidding.
But you did it because when we hunted different. We hunted private land, but we were hunting for population control.
Yeah.
We were hunting for meat and population control because the farmers wanted X amount of deer killed.
Yeah, it's completely different than going out and hunting a stand.
Yeah.
Or trophy hunting a target buck, which,
And as much as anybody thinks, oh, you killed all the deer, no one ever killed all the deer. Like, they just got better at hiding. Like, they were still there.
They know what's going on after the first day or two.
Yeah.
They know the safety zones, where they can get to and where they can't.
The key to that, back in the day always was go get some new deer introduced to an area that they didn't know. Like, if you wanted to really have fun with it, we would go, to the far reaches of our hunting area and get a deer on the run and get it to run down the creek, 1.5 miles down the creek. And once it got in there, a deer running around lost in the woods will move more deer than any human will ever hope to.
They're better drivers.
They're better drivers than we were because they go running by this deer. A deer will let me as a person, if I'm walking past them, they'll lay there and let me walk by. But if they see another deer up running around, why is that deer running?
Right.
Maybe I should get on my feet. Something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just, yeah.
That's a good point because their defense mechanism is blending in, so they will just sort of hunker down, sit still. But when they see each other pushing, that's really a good point you make, and when you get some deer, I know when we were driving, you're in the drive pushing the briars, and we got into some big green briar patches, and we got into some deep stuff, and because we were the younger ones, we got sent into the crap that no one else wanted. The older guys, maybe they did it when they were younger, but they had us now. But when we would get into that stuff and you couldn't see 15 feet in front of you, but you heard gunfire going off or whatever, we would get excited. All right, man, success.
Or you heard the deer leaving and you were you could see them and you were so tangled up that you couldn't even get turns, take the shot.
That stuff.
You could hear them leaving the briars, and all you can do is yell that they're coming out, and some days you're yelling that they're coming out and no one's shooting. I remember one time in specific, probably one of the biggest deer we killed, and I don't know if you were along with it when my buddy Jason shot that big 8-point that we called bullwinkle.
I don't know. I don't remember.
So we jumped it, and I jumped it. It literally was, the length of this table away from me when it jumped up.
Uh-huh.
I got a pot shot off of it at it, and I actually put a hole through between the tendon and the rear leg, right where you hang a deer.
Mm-hmm.
I put a perfect slug hole through there, and I am screaming at the top of my lungs, "Huge buck, huge buck!" The next guy over is my dad, and he yells, "Don't shoot! It's not legal."
That sounds like your dad.
So yeah, that's definitely my dad. Don't shoot; it's not legal. And now we are having an argument in the woods, and I'm like, "Are you nuts? Can you not see?" And he's like, "I'm telling you, the deer I seen wasn't legal, and no one has shot yet. No one has shot yet." And next thing, this deer breaks out into the field in front of the drive, and we can all see it. Now my dad is yelling, "Big buck in the field! Big buck in the field!" And I'm over there laughing, going, "Really? You don't say? I tried to tell you that when it ran by you." And we ended up killing that deer. It took another drive and some guys showing up late, that were late to the party that day and wanted to know, "Hey, what can I do?" Well, go stand on top of this hill in the middle of the field What do you mean stand on top of the clay knob in the middle of the hill? Just stand up there. We put a buck in the bottom. And, sure enough, Jason, he went and stood on top of the hill in the middle of a field. Most guys are thinking we just put you out of the way.
Yeah.
He ends up killing this buck because, well, he was in the right place.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, we knew the terrain.
Yeah.
So like we had figured out, and we hadn't figured it out. That those that had gone before us had it figured out, and
Yeah.
they taught us.
Yeah,
But-
and we soon figured it out.
Yeah, like you learn by watching or through experience that, all right, if you stand in this spot, they're going to bust you and they're going to turn and run a different direction. But if you stand at this spot, they're going to run from one section of woods out towards the other, and you're going to have an opportunity.
Yeah, you might, this spot A, might let you shoot 10 times because of where you're at, and you have nothing to worry about in your backstop, and you got unlimited range. But as you said, you would spook the deer. Now you went to spot B, you got 2 shots, but there's a really good chance they're going to be walking or think they're home free.
They're committed.
They're committed already now. You got 2 of the best shots you can ask for.
Yeah,
and
science to it. And
Yeah.
It's interesting just with like flankers and like all this as a kid, like it's like a military tactics that we're applying on these deer, and then all of us in our orange, riding on the back of the pickup truck. It was just quite the operation. Like when I was really young, just so fascinating, and it still is.
Yeah, and you were the lucky one because you come in towards the end when it was winding down, so you never got the full gamut of. Well, you're going in the briars. You're young enough that we're not.
They took care of you when you
Yeah. The young guys always, you got taken care of for a certain amount of time in there. Like there was this time period where they're like, hey, let's get this boy his first buck. Let's get him a couple
more sense,
deer.
which is right.
Get him, hey, we're worried about him getting lost. And then you get to that point where they're like, oh yeah, he's good. Who cares if he kills anything? Like,
send him into the
if he gets lost, he knows how to find his way home, kind of thing. So they send you into the briars, and they let you pick where you want to go. Yeah, well, okay, it's briar patch A or briar patch B. You want guys on your left or guys on your right, kind of thing. You know?
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear from you though. What because you're like saying like it was fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Like, so your experience, you're hearing us tell stories, but why don't you just chime in a little bit, because you came in as a younger guy, and what was your experience coming in and seeing the operation? Because by then, we'd been hunting together for I don't know, you're about 13 years behind us.
Right. But yeah, I think just the biggest thing that I really like, you're young, you're impatient, it's cold out. So like when I'm sitting in the tree stand, it's like 8:00 and I'm just trying to survive another hour so I don't have to interrupt Dad's hunt, basically say, hey, I failed, I'm cold, let's leave, and let him down. So, it's a little bit more exciting because you can walk through the woods, you're able to, keep warm. Your sits are short lasted, half hour, and then you're up and you're moving again. So that was the most fascinating part to me, is just a different way to hunt.
Okay.
So just getting taught that, different terrain, just being with the guys in the group, being able to yell in the woods. It was always fun, like whooping and hollering, keeping in line, and just learning and being proud of other success. Like what we said earlier, you push through the woods and you hear gunshots, it just gets you excited. And
when it gave you a sense of pride for
Exactly.
for someone else's kill, even.
I think that's really important because, today, like I know guys that they'll tell you like, hey, good hunt, but they're really like, they get bummed because you saw deer and they haven't seen deer. But really when you're doing a group effort like that, like I would be ecstatic. And it was almost like instilled into us. Like it was success for one is success for all.
Yeah. Like when someone killed a big buck, man, everybody was happy for him. Nobody was jealous. And, totally different subject or direction, but I hunt different when I hunt today because people get jealous about, oh, you seen deer, you killed deer. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be saddle hunting next year, and I climber hunt because I don't leave a stand in the woods because there's so many guys that are jealous. And I look at the days of driving and think, man, I don't get jealous. And I attribute it to that because you put the work in, and there was days we walked miles and I never got the gun off my shoulder other than to unload it when I got back out to the road.
Right.
And you know, someone shoots a nice buck, you're still happy for him. You grab a hold of it, you got it, you drag it to the truck for him because you're just pumped that, hey, we helped do that. Like, hey, way to go.
That's the camaraderie piece, you know,
Yeah.
that we, I don't know, we've experienced it. So like, we love it so much, but it's hard to teach. You got to experience it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being like young, like as I get older, I understand it sucks when you walk through these thick patches of briars. We did a little hunt in the state lands up here towards the Black Farm, a little bit above that off Railroad Road. But anyways, they clear cut that, so it's all these like saplings and it's thick walking through. Like, wasn't too bad when I first started, but you know, 10 minutes in, you start to sweat and they're whacking you in the face. You're like, this is miserable. But you know, I'm young. We talk about wrestling. You know, I'm trying to shed a few pounds while I'm out there. Like, I was eager to go, so I really didn't mind being told, like, hey, you know, you're a dog this round rather than sit. Because I get it. You know, it's nice to have a sit. You might think you have more opportunity, but towards the end, before I guess ultimately we slowed down doing it, I was seeing more deer. I think the last time we did it, I got one when I was being a dog, and like that was an awesome, you know, first to realize, hey, I have an opportunity. You know, this isn't just for someone else. You know, it can be for us, me as well. But just going through the briars, and I remember my dad being, you know, frustrated. We're going to Hell's Hill, and I think I think I've only been there once. I think just because of how miserable it's been. And it's one of those things like we're sitting here telling stories. I only heard stories of.
I lost so many like items of clothing and binoculars. There's a walkie-talkie up in there.
Well, so you want to talk about Hell's Hill? I'm sure. I hope your dad has told you the story of my good friend Swifty.
Maybe
we are driving this, and Swifty doesn't hunt a lot. He's got back into it.
That was awesome.
Here recently. He's really recently got back into it. His girlfriend is into it, so he's really getting back into it now. But he hunted a little bit. He come with us one time, and you know, he was like the rest of us. He wasn't necessarily a specimen of physical in shape, physique. Physique. You know, he liked to eat. But we're driving this, and he's in there, and we're in the worst of it. We're in there where you're contemplating the meaning of life. I mean, you're having a lot of thoughts in there at this point. You're calling the guy that sent you in there some names, and you're yelling down through there. You're never hunting with this group of guys again. And the next thing you hear is, I pulled my groin. And Lon is on top, being the flanker up top. He's laughing. He's laughing up there. I can hear him laughing. I'm the guy below him. I can't see nobody. I can hear this all happening around me. And next thing I hear Swifty yell, Lon, just shoot me. Just shoot me. I swear I won't haunt you. Just put one in me. Just do it. And Lon is still laughing at him. He's like, if it's that bad, do it yourself. I can't even get my gun around to shoot myself. If you can see me, shoot me. Just end it. I swear I won't hold against you, you know? And yeah, that hill, we had some good times.
That was a great weekend of hunting. Cause I remember
we ran a lot of deer off of that hill though.
I don't know if we butchered that night and then we were at Swifty's, or if we just went and celebrate. We were celebrated something. But that weekend where he got hung up, I remember I should have been designated driver, but I could hardly get us. He wasn't that far down the road, but I could hardly drive us home. But we were celebrating something, so I can't even see. That's the thing with the memories. Like, you remember stories like that.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the deer we harvested, but we were just having a good time.
Oh yeah,
and we were just doing it together as a group.
Yeah, and there was, you know, the group rotated sometimes. You know, there was friends rotated in, rotated out. You know, the core group of guys was always the same, but you know, the guys that we hunted like it was our job, we were always the same. And there was guys that meandered in, meandered out. You know, it was a rotating, revolving door, so to speak. You know, guys that could get off work, you know, that only took a day or two, they would call up, hey, you guys hunt?
You get a reputation too from some of the stories that we would share.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it was a good reputation. Sometimes it was not such a good reputation.
It depends on what side of the fence you're looking at it from.
Right.
You touched on hunting at the Black Farm. We took the group to the Black Farm, and I don't know if you were part of that.
Either one time.
He probably would have been.
Were you part of that one?
I hunted out there one time with you guys, I think.
Were you part of the fill the truck day? And
no, because I think I had moved away.
That was that was like that was when the group was starting to die, kind of thing, and it was getting harder to hunt on the grounds we always hunted, and we took the group and went up by the Black Farm, which is my in-laws now, and of course my father-in-law, he's like, yeah, come up, I'll have it lined out, I'll be able to tell you guys where to go, and we knew it somewhat, and my brother-in-law came because he knew the drives, and we started driving on the mountain, and we literally filled an 8-foot bed pickup truck full of deer. Huh. And there was a deer that wasn't on the truck, and the deer were still barely fit on the truck. We killed a ginormous buck that day. Guy was in his late 50s that shot it, had buck fever so bad he wouldn't even put his gun down. We drove the drive. We come out through the drive, and we run deer. I mean, we had deer everywhere, and there was snow on the ground so you could see, and it was just
That's the
perfect.
best.
It was the perfect hunt. Like if you were going to draw it up and say what's the perfect conditions, well, it was like 3 to 4 inches of snow. It wasn't too cold. The wind wasn't blowing. You could see through the woods, and the deer were on their feet, and the deer were moving. And I'll never forget that. We come through that drive, and I was the top guy in the drive. There was a flanker above me, and I could look down through the side of the mountain and see the deer just running through the saplings, through the brush, just yelling down through there. Here they come, and the guys shooting, and they weren't hitting nothing. And a couple shots at the very end of the drive. There's a guy by the name of Mike. He actually worked with my father-in-law. It's just monster mass buck come out to him, and he basically shot it at point blank range. Come out the trail he was just happened to be standing on, but it died behind a clump of brush. And a good buddy of mine, Bruce, was above him, and Bruce seen the whole thing unfold because he's up the mountain. Bruce knows it's dead. He knows it's dead. He sees it laying down there. Bruce is hooping and hollering for him. I can hear Bruce yelling about this thing that's down. It's 20 minutes later. We get to the end of the drive, and we're walking down the logging road, and Mike still has his gun up, and he's still shaking, pointing it at this brush. And we get down to him, and Bruce is like, hey, dude, put your gun down. I'll go in and get this deer for you. He's like, He's like, listen, it's been dead for 20 minutes. I seen it fall over. He's literally right around the brush pile. But I'm not going in there until you put that gun down.
That's right.
So he finally, we're all laughing. He puts his gun down. Bruce walks around there, and literally 30 seconds later, here he comes with this buck. And, I wish we got pictures.
Right.
There again, nobody documented the stuff, we were just hunting. We were having fun, the pictures are in my mind. I can, the guys that were with us that day, they all remember it.
That's it. Like we didn't, before cell phones.
Yeah. We didn't document it.
There were no pictures. It was these stories that we were told about these tales and things that happen. And, that story, it's actually a great lesson on perspective. Because he didn't have the same perspective that Bruce did from the high ground.
Yeah.
And when you have a different perspective on a topic or a subject or whatever, you see it completely different.
Yeah.
Which is why ultimately we wanted to ask you to come on, because we share these stories, but you are coming from a different perspective than the ones that we've shared with you. So what would you say, Buck, is how has started out the way that we started out, cutting our teeth on driving deer and hunting as groups and stuff? How's that impacted your outlook on, just your love for hunting and how your approach is? I
think we touched on that a little bit earlier. It instills in there that it's all right to have somebody else kill a deer and be happy for them. That's the biggest thing for me that I see from it. The camaraderie of it obviously is huge, but that hey, it's okay that you're not the guy that killed the deer. The deer's dead. Hey, it's great. Hey, congratulations, man. Good day to be in the woods with you. You're
just sharing the memory.
Just sharing the memory. And even to this day, there's people that I see. I don't go to town a lot, but there's people when I go out to town, and I'll see them, and I'll be like, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And I'll walk by them, and I'll be like, "Wow, how do I know them?" My wife will be like, "Well, that's the guy that shot that buck that shot the buck back at the farm."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. People you can remember the face, but you know, that's my thing. Is it the pride in the hunt, the joy in the hunt for somebody else?
Yeah, it's
and
definitely a winner.
and also too when I'm now that I'm older, sitting in the woods, and I used to get very very impatient. If I haven't seen a deer, it's like, oh, we're done. Let's go. Now if I'm sitting there in the woods and I haven't seen nothing for a while, I start thinking about them days where my coat was getting ripped off of me and I was on my third hat for the day. And I was like, I didn't see any deer that day either. This is a lot easier on me.
No kidding.
This is a lot easier, and just appreciate the two squirrels over there that have been driving me nuts for a while, just,
Right.
it's not that bad. I find myself in the tree stand or, whatever it might be, thinking about those memories a lot, and I still hunt the same woods, the same mountains. We did all that in. So a lot of the times when I'm out in the woods, unless I'm upstate or something like that, but when I'm hunting local to home, there's not a woods that don't have a memory,
That's true.
of some kind, that, good or bad, most of them are good. There's some that aren't so good kind of things, and, but, good or bad, there's a memory in almost every woodlot you go into. And that's the thing for me.
We were nuts though too. I mean,
Yeah.
we were crazy kids. I mean, I remember as hard as some of those patches were to drive. I remember it being so cold, like I would volunteer to drive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't stand this one because I just need to get my hands need to warm up or whatever. My toes need to warm up.
Yeah.
So like we were nuts. We were doing it voluntarily because it was part of that. We knew we were contributing to the group. We were adding value even as youngsters to the overall hunt.
And honestly, at the end of the day, I killed more deer driving than I ever did standing doing that hunting. And the other thing was, I knew where the deer were.
Mm-hmm.
I spent enough time in them woodlots that we hunted every year that come archery season, and I didn't need to scout. I didn't need a trail camera to tell me that there was going to be a deer here. Archery season next year, I knew where I could walk in the woods, climb a tree, or sit on the ground for that matter of fact. And if I sat there 2 days, I was going to stick an arrow in a deer. I mean, you just knew where they were. You got to know, and you got to know how they run. We talked about that a little bit ago, knowing, hey, well, the deer goes here, they're going to bust you, knowing where they're going to go, where they're committed to. So that was like you scouted and hunted all at one time. It was all
creatures of habit.
Yeah, they're creatures of habit. It was all built into one experience, and some of the guys they knew that. Like even there were some times we drove certain woodlots and they'd be like, hey, you need to be over here. Why? Because you know where them deer are.
Yeah.
And you didn't always want to do that because also as a driver, and I'm sure you can attest to this, when you did it so often, even if you knew you were going to walk, there came a point where you knew where you wanted to walk just because you knew
I'll walk around this section.
Well, not only walk around this brush pile, but you knew the guy going over there in that bottom, if there's a deer in there, he's kicking it out of that bottom and they're going to try and run up the draw.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to stay in line, but we're also
give this guy a head start.
If I give this guy a little head start and I stand by that stand of pines, if he jumps them before they go to the standers, they're coming by me. So, it became a cat and mouse game with the guys in the woods, that you knew what was going on, and
it's learning the lay of the land.
And sometimes,
really
the captain, he didn't always see it our way. And sometimes we had to change some things, on the fly because the captain wasn't always along when we went in to start a drive. So there were some times where, hey man, this deer has broke back on us 3 times this season. We start in here, Trussell, you stop at this pine tree. Okay. Once we get by, we'll yell for you. Well, sure enough, it ran right by. And the only difference this time was Trussell got to shoot 5 times. He didn't hit nothing, but Trussell got to shoot 5 times. It did exactly what we thought it would.
Got the action involved.
Yeah, funny here just listening to you talk because I can recall like almost if it was yesterday, but my dad, he's pretty, quiet, laid back, but if something goes, not the way that we intended with the drive, like you're the guy that's calling the audible, just like you hear talking, like probably because you're torqued off too, you've walked through the same stretch of woods and the same routine, but it is interesting how, sometimes let's run it the other way around. Let's do it the opposite way just to keep the deer on their toes.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you can, I think you touched on it, but if you can get a deer confused, whether it's a different section of woods or,
Yeah.
look, we would drive, sometimes we would drive a section of woods on one day to set up the hunt for the next day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We would leave a certain section of property, we would leave it alone for 2 or 3 days to just, because we knew, like, let's create a safety zone and let's push the deer. And like, if they're going to go in there, we'll get the right group of guys together to go in, and then we're going to go have some fun, in that section of
And
woods.
sometimes that meant, well, let's get deeper in the week when the part timers leave.
Yeah.
And we only have a smaller and more intimate 6-man crew instead of 15-man crew. We'll go do this because we don't need all them guys.
Right. There's some strategy involved.
Yeah, there's definitely some strategy involved, and not that we didn't like them other guys, but honestly, at the end of the day, we killed as many deer with small groups of guys as we did with the large groups of guys.
Yeah. What would you say, Hollywood? Now, some of these stories. So, like, are there any stories that you want a different perspective on? We talked about perspective, and
so we got plenty of stories, but just still reflecting. Being young and just being able to navigate the briars a lot easier than as you're going to get a little broader in the shoulders and
sure,
you take up more space. But I can remember Buck, he's got your assless chap, and just to me, different way of hunting. You would go out with your slug gun, and you'd have. It was like the first time I ever seen one. It was like that Magnum with the big scope on the top.
Yeah,
you looked ready for business. But now that I'm older, I know it's difficult to navigate and get.
I ruined so many scopes driving for deer when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And it became so frustrating that's when the slug gun came out. I had a red dot scope on that thing, and it was that was a deer slaying machine. Once I got that thing down in, it was expensive to shoot. It was like, I think at the time, which perspective, it wasn't expensive compared to today.
Sure.
But it was like $225 a shot. Every time you pulled the trigger, it was like $2.25, out your pocket for the slugs that I was using. But I mean, it would sling them out there 300 plus yards and do the job. So, it was fun. That's why we did it. I can remember one time my uncle had a drive, and there was the one wood lot. Everybody wanted to be the stander, because if there was a drive that was going to be easy to shoot deer, it was that one. It's, we called it Joe's Bottom. A lot of young guys got their first deer. You may have even got your first deer. I know your brother, that's where he got his first deer in a snowstorm. I was part of helping get that deer down to him. So a lot of young guys shot their first deer there. And a lot of times at the end of the season, the dogs, we would get to stand that. And the elders would bring it to us. And I was in the tower stand one day, and them slugs had blue casings to them. And my uncle comes to the bottom. He gets out and he walks down there and he says, "Looks like there's a damn carnival going on down here." I said, "Well, there it is. Just wait until we start dragging." And I think you were down in the creek that day. We had deer everywhere.
I remember sitting.
You were there, Trossel, Jason. I mean, we had a heck of a crew of guys down there that day. And
I don't know if it was the same day or not, but I remember sitting in a stand on that drive at the end of the year, and there were like 3 or 4 doe coming single file, and they were just bound nice and slow, right up toward the creek bottom, and it was just like one after another, laying them down, and we had pulled a lot of deer out of that bottom.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
But yeah, we didn't. That was also a good spot to get the young guys involved, because there was success.
Yeah,
in there.
Yeah, your brother got his first deer in there, and that was part of that. We were soaking wet. And we're like, oh, he killed it. We're done. We're done. It's finally. It's snowing. We're soaking wet. We're cold. Like, finally, we got this thing killed, and
But we would work together, and especially for the younger guys, because we want to get the next generation involved. But we would work hard to try to get you guys to see the deer, and they did it for us too, so that we'd have opportunities, so that we would get the itch, right?
Yeah.
Because once you have success. I've got buddies that go out and they're folks have hunted, but they don't hunt because they've never had really success. And they're like, why sit out here and freeze? But Yeah, I mean, it's different once you have a little bit of success in the field because then they
Oh, yeah.
keep coming back.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially doing for someone's first year. There's a story we're going to get to about that, and it involves your shotgun too. But I just want to last lead off with just the fact of we talked about mentoring the youth, and just it's a good learning experience. I learned a lot about gun safety, and just here's how we do it. This is why we're doing it. But I can remember, I guess I was too young to carry a gun with me. It was whoever I was with, there was one gun. But I remember on a stand with your dad, and just some deer ran out, and he shot one. It was just like the best thing ever, just to be part of that experience, and just to be thrilled for him to say, "Hey, we did it."
One thing I'll say about your dad always looked out for the new guys.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, he takes a lot of pleasure, and when there was somebody got to be old enough to hunt, he'd look out. He would be an advocate for you. He'd get you positioned in the right spot. He'd volunteer to stand with you too. But,
He was all about that. Hey, I'll stand with him. We'll take this. I'll help him. But he did it. But Dad's got 3 bucks on his wall that come from driving for deer. That he doesn't have any problem telling someone that, oh yeah, these are the boys that drove them deer to me.
Yeah,
that deer's there because of these guys. And I was in Buck's stand when I shot that. Yeah. Quit telling that story. I was an idiot when I put that stand there, but I killed some deer out of that stand. And, the guys that killed deer out of that stand, never me, but everyone that killed a deer out of that stand was happy I put it there. But
it's giving back, but
yeah,
it's what it's about. But yeah, there's a story that I don't know how I probably hear it once every 4 years about
I'm curious to see how he remembers this.
So just perspective. So just looking to get a different version of it, more clarity. But I heard Ron here. He's pretty quick. He can chase deer down.
Leap for leap, bound for bound. That's the story.
Now that was Maury's first deer, right?
Yes, that was my sister, Maury. That was her first deer. So here again, looking out for the younger generation. If we, full disclosure of this story, we'll start from the beginning. Looking out for the younger generation. Joe, he's the neighborhood captain kind of thing. He overseen the hunting. He kind of was the guy that everyone looked to when it was time to, and if Joe couldn't be there, Joe would normally appoint someone who was going to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe had a stand in Smith's Woods, and that was Joe's. Well, Joe kind of gave it up and hunted his own bottom. And I hunted Joe's stand as a young kid. And then when my sister come along, I got pushed out of a lot of things, but that's a whole nother problem for a whole nother day.
Segment.
That's a whole nother segment. That's a whole nother thing we can talk about. But, my sister went there with my dad to that stand, to the stand. That was the stand to hunt if you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, here comes the buck, just like it's supposed to.
Maybe.
Just like, just like we're filming this hunt, just like we got hunt of a lifetime or, whatever. Yeah. And we're filming this hunt for a kid. It comes up, she takes a shot, hits it in the guts. It was a bad shot. There's nothing. First deer, it happens. Guys that have shot 100 deer still make a bad shot. Regardless, it's a bad shot, but it's a fatal hit, we assume. So essentially for a week, we tracked this deer at night most of the time because it got some places we shouldn't have been. So it was tracked with pistols and flashlights through some places that, we definitely didn't want to be caught. Let's put it that way. And till we get to the next weekend, and it was one of them times actually where there was not a lot of hunting going on. Different reasons, whatever. Not the group wasn't together that week.
Well, the season went on hold.
Yeah.
While this was,
and they didn't want to push anything, and
it was important that we got this year for.
So we tracked it as we could, went basically for Saturday morning. Are sure we know where this. We've been tracking this thing for a week.
You know where it's not.
We know where it's not. We know where we pushed it. We've seen it every time we've tracked it. We've seen it, but haven't been able, just because of the terrain. And we talked about the briars and stuff. Haven't been able to put this deer down.
Tracking it blood.
Some of both.
All right.
Some of both. Some of just we're tracking blood. We're tracking, stumbling leaves that look like they were stumbled through. So we got it narrowed down to a woodlot that we've never hunted as a group, but we have permission to go in because we're sure this deer is in there. So Saturday morning, we saddle up. This is what we're going to do, guys. We can go to this point. Hopefully we find her this deer. This is the last ditch effort. She didn't even come hunting at this point. Like, she's so beside herself. She's ready to quit.
She was done.
She was done. She's wore out. She's not even coming hunting. She's not even getting her clothes on. And it wasn't a very large group of us that day, but so we're going over to this pine thicket, and the pine thicket's not even there anymore. It's been clear cut. It's gone.
Let me just interject one thing, because it had snowed and then like freezing rain overnight.
Yeah.
And so like you had a good crust of ice on top of the snow. And so when we were walking, I mean, you were crunching through the ice. So it wasn't like we had a good.
We weren't sneaking up on nothing.
Right.
Stealth tactics.
Yes.
Yeah. But we go on this hillside, and we don't know what to expect. We don't know what's going to happen. So we put some flank, and it's kind of like a gully, hollow, ravine, whatever you want to call it, in between some orchards. We put some flankers up in the orchards, and there's a road down through the center. We got a guy on the road, we got guys on the outside, and there's a couple of us walking through the pine thicket. We get to the end. I mean, we are we're to that, like, everyone is, the balloon is deflated kind of thing. Everyone is just like,
yeah,
man, I can't believe it. This thing, it got us. Like, after everything, we lost it. And there it stands. It jumps up literally right beside me.
I remember, because I was next to you, and you're like, I see it.
I remember yelling, I see it. I pull up, shoot, take the hair off the top of its back. It falls down, gets up, and starts running back. Now we're running through the woods. We head the deer off. I don't care what anyone says to this day.
You're the one person that'll vouch for this.
Yes.
That's the real reason why we got you.
The leap for leap, and it's the story that it was all day. Leap for leap, bound for bound. We run that deer down and killed it. Yes, it had a slug wound across its spine. It had been gut shot for a week, but yes, leap for leap, bound for bound, we run that deer down and harvested it.
I think that the part that we conveniently leave out of the story, which is why I brought up the weather conditions, is like, you're watching this wounded deer try to like run on ice.
Yeah.
And it wasn't getting anywhere.
It wasn't getting anywhere. There's shots being fired. And I mean, at this point, everyone is firing on this deer because we know it's the deer.
Yeah.
It's not getting out of there. Like, it's fully surrounded, but we're still running this deer down because it's,
It was more about your sister's first kill.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly.
It was more about the sentiment of the deer.
Yeah, I mean, it being gut shot for a week and the condition and stuff, like, that meat wasn't worth anything at that point, but it was the sentiment of the deer, and she was down. So, but it was really important to, I know, your dad, and to all of us, really, that we got that thing. And you don't want to ever leave an animal wounded either or anything, but there was just a little something special about finishing the job.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one that'll always live in infamy, because we ran that deer down. We did. When that deer died, we were on top of it. Like, we were there. We were on it. Like, if we ran out of bullets, we were going to tackle it soon. Right. But, you don't know how many times, though, that we tried to do that. Thinking, when you're a kid in the woods and you're like, oh, I can head them off. Even with they want to teach it the angle on the football field. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you can use an angle on a deer and it doesn't matter. They can outrun you every time.
Yeah.
But we ran that deer down. I don't care how anyone's version of the story goes. And call it adrenaline because we knew why we were chasing him. Call it whatever you want. But
I guess just some of the details were left out. They were slowly added the more and more I heard the story.
Yeah, but it wasn't getting away. We were, we were going to chase it down, and everyone was laughing because they seen us chasing the deer. Like, they knew.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it is with the older guys. Like, I mean, you like to bust your buddy's chops and that sort of stuff, you know. So, you know, we come out of that drive and we're like, you know, hey, we just ran this thing down, leap for leap, bound for bound. We got on it and headed it off. And you know, everybody wants to throw in those details that we conveniently leave out. Well, it was gut shot a week ago.
Yeah.
Well, it was running on ice.
Yeah.
So were we.
So were we. You know, it's fair. You know, fair's fair. But you know, that's one of them things. The group, the camaraderie, you know, you've heard that story obviously. So it, you know, the story the story's getting passed down. You know, it travels. You know.
How old were you guys?
Well, if your sister
My sister had just started hunting, so we'd have been like 15, 16 probably. You know,
So
I don't know if it was our very first. I don't know if it was our very first year. So I'm thinking we were 15 or 16, 17, somewhere. We were between 15 and 17.
the perfect age, you know, once you're into it.
why I laugh is like I picture you guys as you are now.
Oh no, nothing down.
Yeah, so
You
like
know.
that's where I'm kind of like I raise more questions in a sense, like oh it's wounded, but just to realize
We
how
weren't
long
big
ago it
burly
was.
boys back then.
Yeah.
No.
Since I know you guys were probably more in a lot more shape.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
bit more athletic.
Now you
Yeah.
get it.
All right,
Yeah.
we got another guest. The dog's greeting somebody coming down into the
Yeah,
studio.
we were a little more nimble than we are today.
Right.
Today I'm standing still and I'm just shooting.
Because yeah, like when you know we walk the mountaintops up at our camp in Pepper, you know we do our recording, and if he's recording, all you hear is. So we know we have to work on our cardio for the next year.
Yeah, I can relate to that big time. Like so my wife and my kids, we started doing some hunting in Potter County, and there's a mountain up there. It's exactly 1 mile of walking from the truck, all uphill on a logging road, and it's straight up one side, straight down the other. So there's really no hunting to be done,
Right.
You know, in the way I like to hunt anyway. But once you walk that 1 mile, when you get up top, it flattens out, big mountain top. You know, it's still rolling on the top of the mountain.
It's worth
But there's
it.
there's 1 mile of uphill, just straight walking. Legs are on fire, lungs are on fire, and every time I make that walk, that 1 mile, it's 1 mile until you see another road to branch anywhere. I make that walk, and every time I get up there, and I say, never again am I doing this. And before the day is over on top of that mountain, I will see something that says, this is why I make this walk, and I'll be back again next year. However, I'm getting a little smarter and a little more financial stable, so I'm going to be looking into an e-bike. Because as I was up on top of that mountain last year, these guys are cruising by me on an e-bike, and then it really started burning more than just my lungs. The fact that I make this trek, and now this guy just cruises by me, you know, who's got probably 30 pounds on me, cruises by me on an e-bike going even farther.
Yeah. Well, it's the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yeah.
make tools to make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, Lon, you just showed up. Do you want to hop in with us?
Whatever, man.
I mean, we'll sit and we're gonna do an episode with you, but why don't you, if you're gonna hang out, come hang out. Pull up a chair.
Yeah, you fit in here.
We'll hop you in here, and you can probably share some of these stories. Oh, it's deep.
I don't know that it's any deeper than it's ever been.
If we can set him up, you know, back here around the corner, or if you want to slide around,
You get around behind me, Lon?
yeah, why don't you hop on in here, and because I know that you got we were just talking about perspective. You know, you're on deer drives or whatever, and one guy's got one perspective.
Well, you're actually here to defend yourself now because you've been talking about a lot here this morning.
Don't matter. We cover each other.
That's right.
So what would you say from the story we were just talking about, Mars deer, the one that we ran down?
Bound for bound.
Bound for bound, leap for leap. From your perspective, because you were there that day, when we came out and we were saying, hey, you know, we had just ran this deer down from behind. What was your take on that? Because Brady's getting more details of the story, obviously, but he's heard my version. Now he's heard Buck's. And I know he's heard yours.
Week after she shot it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It lived for a week with a bullet in its guts. That's
We a little drive on, her first deer. What it was all about, getting her first deer.
That's what we were saying. Like there was a bit of a sentimental push on that, but we all wanted to close the deal on that for her. Because even that week in between, things kind of shut down. There wasn't a whole lot of heavy hunting going on until that deer was found.
Yep.
But from the story aspect of things, when we come out and we're telling stories like this, these are the memories. Like we have visual when we tell the story. Like I can picture it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you had I don't know where you were involved on that drive, but at the end of the drive, when we started like telling the story about everything that had transpired, I don't know. I feel like there was like bullshit, guys. That's not how it happened.
Well, it was laid down in a big, deep hollow. Deck briars, blowed down trees. All right. So me and another guy, probably 6 or 7 of us, driving this hollow out. Well, me and a guy that was on the side of me, he might have been 15 yards, maybe 20. Hollered rabbit. All right. So we both looked, and this deer, you guys ran down, took 30 seconds to get to its feet, directly between me and him. There wasn't no way either of us could shoot. There wasn't any way for one of us to get out of the road of the other one because it was that thick and we were that tight on stuff. And the deer ran about 10 yards, just about to the point where you could, start thinking, I'll stand here, you shoot. And it fell down. And then it took it 5 or 10 seconds to get back on its feet, crawl a little bit. And it did that 2 or 3 times. So it finally got to some easier walking for it and made it to where you guys were. And then
that's when the fun started.
Got to
Flipping on the ice.
Got to hear the story about how you guys run this thing down. Even when it did get to its feet, it couldn't hold itself up straight.
So basically, Brady, what I'm catching from this is we could have ran it down. I might even be able to catch it today.
A good opportunity for that.
We had to do it all over again. We would still run it down.
Oh, I would still do it again. Like I probably, I'm definitely not catching it today, but I'd still try.
Right. That's what it's about.
It was the effort to get the first one for your sister.
Yeah.
Well, that's the important piece, is because we were just talking about how back in the day we didn't take pictures like we do now. We don't like document, like a lot of the stuff was just stories that were told when we were kids getting started. So we want to talk. We had a good successful hunt this year. We both shot bucks this year, Brady and I, and so decided we're going to do some European mounts. So we're sitting in my basement, working on these European mounts, got them in the cooker, cleaning them up. And I've only done like 1 or 2 Euro mounts in the past, right? So I've got them hanging up down above the workbench. And he starts asking me questions about this one little 7-point, kind of a gnarly looking 7-point stuff. And so I started telling him the story about this deer that broke out across an open field that you and I unloaded. Like, talk about carnival shooting. We unloaded across this open field on this deer and just about gave it a heart attack, I think is what happened. But do you recall that story?
Oh, yeah.
1?
Yeah.
And 2, why don't you walk Brady through because there's some Lon's version and my version are close, but maybe not exactly, where we were, how it happened, not exactly identical to one
I don't
another.
recall exactly where we were setting when we seen it the first time, but we seen it on the fence. We seen it in the fence row going above the farm behind Vince's house. Knew it was a buck. We're on the truck. They take off from the truck, and the deer disappeared. We get up Vince's driveway. They stop the truck. and we start up across the pasture. We're still walking along the fence at this point, and we decide we're going to cut across the pasture and try and head this thing off.
For those that are listening, why don't you describe for us, like try to give a visual picture of like the pasture, the fence line, the driveway.
From where we parked, we drove the truck in the flat driveway and parked where the hill starts. Number one, it's all uphill to the woods. It's probably 300 yards ish.
Big cow pasture.
Big cow pasture. You know, fence runs right along the road, and the woods is a narrow strip of woods, and then it comes back to a point, and the base of a hollow opens up into a big wood lot with some houses in. So if the deer makes it to that wood lot, probably not going to be able to go. So the idea is we bail off the truck and take off.
Because we were going to get an angle.
Because we were going to take an angle. We talked about getting an angle and running a deer down a while ago. We're going to take an angle, and you know, the older guys are right in there with us on this operation. So it's not just two young guys dreaming this up. We're just the guys that they're sending up across the field. Well, as we get started up across the field, we're hoofing as much as we can hoof at this point. You know, like.
And you said earlier before we started recording, there ain't no sprinters ever been in this family.
We don't have sprinters here, you know. So we are doing what we can in hunting boots and hunting clothes. You know, Brady touched on how we were dressed to beat the briars, so it's not exactly like we're in our running shorts here either. And this deer comes out to the edge of the woods, and we see the deer that we're not beating it, so we proceed to open fire on the deer.
Do you remember what you were hunting with?
Oh, I was hunting with my slug gun. That was the slug gun days, and you know, the first two shots were kind of range things in because you could see the pine trees.
How far was it?
You could see the pine tree splinters just flying. It's 300-ish yards at least, I would think. I mean, I'd have to go to the rangefinder to say any different. I mean, that's my best guess to this day.
When you're in a big cow pasture like that, and all you see is like grass.
Yeah.
And Nolly grass hill, and it goes on for as long as that big as that is. It is hard to range it.
But the first two don't count. I can guarantee you, they were just ranges. And what we need to do to lead this thing, because you could see the pine trees.
It was running too,
and it's running. It's not walking, especially once we started shooting. Somehow we knocked it off its feet.
Who?
To this day, we couldn't tell you. Yeah.
What were you shooting?
I usually hunt with a 30-06, but that day I was carrying a 30-30 because I was tired of like busting brush and stuff. Yeah, like 30-06 is what I needed on a wide open field like that. But most of the briar patches and stuff, a 30-30 would do. So I just had an old lever action 30-30, which isn't built to shoot 300 yards. So I was sending some from the hip. So I don't know that either of our guns were
equipped to be shooting what we were shooting, but it died on the edge of that field in that wood line that day.
Yes, it did. You know, he was, I don't know what you said when you saw that. You're like, man, what happened? That thing got hit by a truck or something. Because it had weird horns.
I mean, we were getting close to it to the point where it was turning and it wasn't running a straight line. Like it knew it was in danger. So, you know.
Have any bullet holes?
None that we could see at the time.
I don't know that there was any confirmation on that, because when we were cutting that deer up, your dad took the cape to the taxidermist to try to find the bullet hole.
Yeah,
because he was convinced we gave it a heart attack.
Yeah,
which maybe we did. You know, I don't know. I know
they ran up there and died of old age.
I do know a deer can die from a bloody nose.
You know, they just happen to. We just happened to be there when it died of old age. Maybe, I don't know, but.
Yeah, that was some story because just from being unprepared and ill-equipped. But I remember being in the bed of the truck, seeing that thing bust out over the, you know, and we knew it only had so far until it hit the big woods.
Yeah.
And
I don't even remember who was driving the truck anymore, but they were on it. Like they knew we had to get there to try and head it off, and you know, do the best you can. You know, we were taking the angle.
Right. It's funny about taking the angle. I can remember archery being real young. The old bow in here, I can show you. I don't know when that thing's from. It looks like it's from the 40s. Just passed down from generation to generation. But just being in the woods, you know, you're impatient. You just, maybe more so, you just don't know. But here's 80 yards. It's well out of my range. I'm only shooting like 20 yards, but just doing one of these. And then as soon as I release, as soon as I release that arrow, just watching it fly. But I guess I didn't have the strategy of ranging it in for the next 2 shots.
You got
After that first one, I was like,
you got to keep that in mind when you're doing that. That's the range thing.
Yep.
You talk about shooting at long range. I mean, that was a short shot compared to some of what I tried with that slug gun. I know you were there for it, Lon. Up at Naxted's, we had a real nice buck broke out, and we're in the bottom below the pond, and these guys are behind the guys with the rifles are all behind the barn. And here again, there's no sprinters in this family. They got to get the whole way around the barn to be able to see it. I'm the only guy with a gun who can see it. And the first time I seen it, it's probably 400 yards and gaining fast. And I'm launching mortar rounds out across there. And the best part about it is, you're shooting slugs 400 plus yards. Instead of just laughing and telling you're a dumbass, these guys, a little higher, a little farther out.
Team effort.
Almost to the right.
Yeah, they're yelling it out. Like, I can't even see this thing on the gun because I'm way up pulling the trigger. And we get done with the drive, and everyone's laughing about it. And Joe says, "Well, we need to go up there and check because I'm telling you, he was close." And when we went up there, almost shot for shot, them slugs were hitting the ground between the hoof prints and the snow going out across that field. So we were just,
It's interesting.
we were that close. I was making the right adjustment, but I needed to double my adjustment.
It's funny. Yeah, I think generationally, if I did that now, I would get it chewing out. I'd lose my gun.
Well, you say that, but I shot the best buck of my life this year, and I ranged it. It was 425 yards where the first bullet went in him.
Slug?
No, it was with a rifle. It was with a rifle.
A little bit of different.
Yeah, it was with the rifle, but I would have took the shot with it. I would have took the shot. I would have.
So, I mean, what's that? I mean, we know what it's like, but tell us a little story about. You'd say it's the best buck of your life.
So we had this deer on camera. We knew where it was living, where it was traveling, and my wife and daughter have been in a blind. They were in a blind for 2 days straight hunting this deer. The gang shows up to hunting off, and Mason and I had hunted in the morning. We were hunting the edge of the field, so the gig's up by 8:30, 9 o'clock. They're not trying to come out of the orchard back into the woods. It's over. So we had went home and fed the cows and stuff. And we come back, and I was like, "What do you want to do? You want to take a mountain ride? You got wrestling practice coming up, that thing." He's like, "Well, let's go out. Let's ride out the top of the mountain." So we ride out the top of the mountain, and we're going out the railroad then. And he's like, "Why don't you just drop me off above the buckets? I'll walk down through the rhododendrons and stuff to you. You go set at the bucket. I'll drive that down to you." All right. So I drop him. We beat feet. I beat feet around there, get back into the buckets. He comes down through nothing. Well, while he's getting to me, we hear this super holler. Somebody's driving something, We go out to the truck. We're getting ready to leave. My father-in-law sitting in the field at the farm with my daughter in the truck. Hey, the Bendersville gang just pulled in there driving the side of the mountain off. All right, well, they're driving the side of the mountain off. They never bring anybody down low enough. Let's run back in here where we were. So we go back into the buckets. The drive comes through, nothing. All right, well, it's time. It's getting on time to go to wrestling practice. So I told Mason, I said, "Go out. You get the truck. I'm gonna walk out through the field, kind of like a flanker to them, because they didn't have anybody in the field." I knew my father-in-law was sitting in our field at the big tree, to watch the field. So I'm almost to my father-in-law and daughter sitting in the truck, and this buck breaks out across the field. And I seen it. I knew it was a good buck. I seen it, and I first seen it, I thought, "Man, that's a long ways out across there." Well, don't know if you don't try. I shot the first shot. Until then, my father-in-law is out of the truck, and he's shooting. The deer runs between our house, shed, and barn right up the driveway. My father-in-law claims he's never seen one do that in his entire life. A deer run where that one ran. So from my perspective of that deer, when it turns now to head back to the woods out of the field, when I pull the gun up, it is running parallel with the upright crosshair in the scope. Now I practiced shooting the entire way across that farm, so I got a really good idea where I need to be on that deer with the gun I have in my hand. I can see my father-in-law's shells hitting the ground in the field. And when I squeezed the second one off, it fell, it stumbled. It didn't fall, but it stumbled, tail went down. Ran, and then ran on out of the woods. Ran on out back into the woods. So I'm right there with my father-in-law. My daughter's there. She's watching it. And I made the comment, its tail went down. One of us hit that deer. He said, nah, we didn't hit that deer. We didn't hit that deer. I said, I'm telling you, one of us hit that deer. Well, where it went out of the field, we have a driveway in and out of the field back to the road. Well, I'll ride out there. We'll ride out. Till then, Mason is rolling up in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's going on? Who was doing all the shooting? You know, big buck. So they drive out to where we seen it cross the road. And Mason and I are, you know, we're BSing a little bit, watching the drive, and my daughter calls me, Dad, you have a spot of blood the size of a pinky nail. Well, that's a start. Like, we know we hit it. Just
there's hope.
Got to start somewhere.
There's hope, you know. And my father-in-law, he's already convinced. He's already wrote it off. He's like,
that's why you got to check.
We didn't hit that deer, you know. But he knows. He's like, it ain't mine. I'm sure of that. I know I didn't hit that deer. All right. So by this point, my wife is coming out with my other daughter because the drivers walked right by them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I told her, hey, pretty sure we hit your deer that you're hunting. It ran out in the field. So we go to the driveway where they have the spot of blood, and father-in-law, he goes, and there's a bank up into the woods. We walked up on the bank, and you can see the leaves are kicked up. And we start walking. Maybe we go 15 yards, and we're not finding any blood. Of course, I have 3 kids. My son, he's on a mission. He thinks he's going to find them. I'm like, stop. I'm yelling at him.
You're going to run it down. He's getting an angle on.
Yeah. So I'm like, we need to rethink this. Back out. We don't even know. We got no blood. We haven't found no blood.
Strategize.
So we go back to the road. We're standing on top of the knob, the bank at the edge of the road. My wife is there now in the truck, and my 2 daughters. And I'm like, all right, somebody needs to go around here and get down on the mud hole road, because we don't have good enough blood on this trail. So she's all right. I'll take the girls. I said, you take the girls. I'll get Mason. I'm like, told Mason, I said, you need to go up top. I said, because every time there's a buck on this hill, it likes to run to the top of this hill to circle things. That's how they get away from you up there. All right. So I'm going to take my daughter, walk down through this. We'll try and follow this leaf trail. All right. So we're standing there on the bank, and my wife doesn't even put the truck in drive and move 10 feet. And I see this deer trying to get up. And at this point, I'm not even really sure where I'm hitting or what I'm shooting at. I'm just bullets flying through the woods back, and no one knows what I'm shooting at this point.
Sure. Where did you hit it? I mean, if it's so, you're saying trying to get back up. So I'm assuming you got
the hole that was in it was in the guts. It passed through the soft tissue between its legs in the hind quarter, but went into the guts.
Yeah.
It went through just enough soft tissue that the ballistic tip went open in the hind quarter, but when it went in the back of the gut cavity, it was already open. Just totally ravaged the guts. So there was literally a hole through the soft tissue of the inner hind quarter that you could stick like your number 2 pencil. I was shooting a 243.
Right.
You could stick a number 2 pencil through there. The bullet never opened, but when it was coming out of there, I'm assuming the hide opened it and ravaged up through the gut. So it's only 30 yards off the road the last time from where we seen it.
Yeah.
We were within 15 yards when my boy was in there wandering around blind, and it never moved, and now it's trying to get up. And then, you know, I end up blowing the back straps completely out of it because I'm not letting it get away at this point.
Ruin the whole.
Yeah.
You know, what's left of this? So, you know, let's take care of that too.
You know, at that point, I knew it was a good buck.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't care where I was hitting it at that point. Like I'm just
Yep.
shooting, like shooting to shoot. You know, she puts the truck. What are you doing? We're not even ready. I'm like, you don't need to go around there. Just bring the truck. Stop the truck. We're gonna get here. You know.
No doubt.
But yeah, it was definitely a good shot across that field, and you know, we spent some time shooting across that field and joking all the time that yeah, you need to be ready to shoot.
One of these days.
One of these days, this is going to come in handy, and you know, you don't even think, you know, when you sit there at the bench, you can think of all the calculations, and you know, you've done it. You sit there and you range it out. That day, like I just was like, well, that looks close, and pull the trigger.
You really don't know until
You don't know, and honestly, if that deer wouldn't have been running parallel with the upright crosshair in that scope, I probably don't hit that deer.
Right.
You know, if it's running at an angle off either way, no.
And you should have brought it so that we could highlight it. What? How big was it?
So depends on who you measure it. You know,
The unofficial outdoors.
the unofficial Mentzer outdoors is we're going to call it 118.
Oh,
It's been called 111,
nice.
so it's somewhere in there. 115, we'll call it. You know, and best thing I've ever shot.
Yeah, we shot some nice bucks this year, and I remember looking at them when we were doing because we measured them after we did the Euro mounts. But I remember looking at them, and I told you they were probably around 120. Is that what I said?
Yeah.
You know, they're around. Man, these are close to 120, and you know, we measured them, and I think they were, you know, 116, 118 ish. You know, unofficial, official measure.
You're right.
You know? But anyway, you know, it's always fun when you get the positive harvest, and you got the story to tell.
Oh my,
that goes with it.
Yeah, yeah. And it was, you know, so as we're doing this, like, it's time to be at wrestling practice. So my father-in-law shows up, and he's like, "Did you guys get the deer?" Yeah, but someone's got to drive Mason to wrestling practice. So Mason goes to wrestling practice, and the best part is he ends up having to run extra and do extra work at practice because he's 10 minutes late to wrestling practice. But he didn't care either because he was excited because Dad shot this deer. You know.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you're in high school and we were playing sports and stuff, I know I missed a lot of hunting with you guys when I was playing football in the fall, and you know, certainly you got wrestling in the winter. I'm sure you missed a lot of hunting with us when you were in high school too. So you know, it's trying to balance that because those are important memories to be made as well.
Yeah, and that's a discussion we have all the time. Like, you're going to have the rest of your life to hunt deer. Like,
right.
Some of the stuff you're doing now, there's an expiration date on that stuff. You're not gonna do the stuff you're doing now 15 years from now. Like, there's an expiration date on some of that. So, you know, we have them conversations quite often anymore.
All right, but when you're in high school, it still sucks.
Oh yeah, and it does. And I you know, I see his side of it. I know his side of it. I mean, we were all there, so you kind of feel both ways.
I mean, I remember, like, you know, you got football practice, and then you come home and you're hearing these stories about these, you know, hey, we both, you know, we're seeing all these deer move through, and we're having success. And, you know, you guys would leave for a couple of days because, you know, you would hunt in, you know, some northern counties in Pennsylvania and come back, and I hear the tales, or, you know, there'd be blood on the tailgate, you know, those type of things. So you feel like you're missing out, but you gotta, I know for myself, I was always told you got to choose.
Yeah.
You know, you got to make the choice, and you know what you do. And we were always given a choice on that. But yeah, you're only that age once.
Right. Yeah.
Just perspective, talking to people through work and, you know, different areas, just where we are and how much of a foundation hunting is for the area. Like, we have opener Monday. You don't have to go to school. A lot of districts around here have off, so. There was a girl I work with from Jersey. She came in. She just thought that was the oddest thing. That, you know,
Right.
Why is this a national holiday around here?
It should be
so celebrated. That's just kind of.
Well, and you know, full circle for me, having young kids now, and you know, Sunday hunting's a big debate. You know, some people are all for it. Some people are 100% against it. With kids and activities, I'm all for it because that's sometimes the only time my kids have to hunt. You know. Right. There again, with schools being closed, though, most of our schools are pretty understanding about, hey, it's hunting season, buck fever kind of thing.
But the coaches aren't.
But the other side, well, but not only the coaches.
They want you to choose.
You know, to play sports. You know, like with Mason, he had to have 11 practices to wrestle in the first event of the year. So if he misses any practices, he can't even compete at the first event of the year now, because PIAA says you have to have 11 official practices. And then here's the first date you're allowed to start practice.
Yeah.
That's 12 days, including Thanksgiving is one of them days. 12 days from the time it starts to your first competition. So if you miss any of them, you're out, you know? So Sunday and Thanksgiving, there's some of the days you got that you don't have to worry about it, and, they were accommodating to the schedule somewhat. They didn't try and have practice at, hey, we're not going at 7 o'clock in the morning. They did them in the middle of the day, when most people aren't hunting, but nonetheless, even, with my daughters, they're into stuff. And Sunday's the day you can get out in the woods Sunday and there's nothing else going on. It's
Well, on that note, right? I want to shift this because I got some questions from the outside here. All right, based on our conversations that we got, I'm going to give you some rapid fire, and I want you to tell me.
He likes his rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Elevate more.
elevate.
Listener feedback. All right, I got a couple of questions here, and I want to get your response to these. All right, so on deer drives. What advice do you have for somebody that's wanting to introduce their children to hunting through deer drives?
Safety.
Yeah, because it can get wild.
It can go bad fast.
Yeah. All right. Running down deer on foot. Running down deer sounds intense. How do you physically prepare for such an approach? And what are the keys to success?
You don't prepare. It's adrenaline at that point.
Extreme training and shoot it a week earlier.
Yeah. I mean, yes, there is no preparation for that. You just, it becomes adrenaline.
All right. Long range deer kills. How do you handle factors like wind, terrain when taking long shots? And follow up, how has technology influenced this aspect of hunting?
Well, the first two shots is how you determine where you need to be, and then you start on the third one. I mean, that's
windage and elevation.
Yeah.
Windage.
I mean, in all honesty,
Well, John Wayne Cook.
I've worked a lot more on that anymore. Like I've started getting that down to a science, but back in the day that we're talking about, it was the first two shots were all right. That's where I need to be. Now we'll start kind of thing.
All right. General hunting question here. As someone with extensive hunting experience, what general tips do you have for both new and seasoned hunters? So we've got some people that, and we want to encourage, like, just because you didn't start when we were younger, like when we did when we were kids, like, give it a try. So a lot of people just don't even try because they didn't have someone to mentor them. But the question is, like, what tips would you have for both new and seasoned hunters?
Patience. It's called hunting, not killing.
We've been on a lot of unsuccessful hunts, but there's no such thing.
And don't be afraid to try different types of hunting. We're sitting here talking about deer hunting, but
right.
I've done a lot of waterfowl hunting, and to each their own. Waterfowl hunting's a lot of fun too.
Once you get bit by that bug,
you can waterfowl hunt. When you're waterfowl hunting, you're laying there in a blind or sitting in a blind having a BS session just like we are here. Oh, here they come. You hear them, shut up. Here they come, You're not isolated out there by yourself in the deer woods. So that's, for some people, that's the thing, So
yeah, I mean, I know that
there's not just one type of hunting out there. It's not a one size fits all kind of sport.
Yeah, I know. I was talking about my one buddy who says, like, he won't hunt because he doesn't want to sit still and have the patience for it, like you said. And if you take him out and he were to have some success, shooting squirrels or shooting birds or anything where you didn't have to sit still and freeze, he probably would hunt.
Yeah, well, that's what I said when we did one of these a while back. That there's better things to do than to take a little one or somebody that ain't never done it. Yeah, we're gonna sit here, don't move, be quiet.
Because sometimes it's finding the right type of hunting to get someone engaged and maybe you don't start with deer hunting. Maybe you start with rabbit hunting, or you start
Rabbits,
squirrel hunting, or
squirrel.
you start with waterfowl, where it's active and it's quick, it's faster paced, and there's stuff going on. And then you're like, well, that was fun. Well, let's try deer hunting. You know, it's
There's something about having that success, like we talking about when we were kids.
Yeah.
The older guys positioned us to see deer, to get opportunities, and once you have a little bit of success, you keep coming back.
Right. Just thrills you. You still get that itch, like you were saying about the bug that bit you, and it kind of ties into. I know for you, just when you have action and you get deer on the ground, you're pumped.
Oh
So,
my, yeah.
I don't know how it is for you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I was like a little kid when I shot that buck this year.
Right.
My wife's laughing at me. You get her to tell you that story because I'm sure my side of that don't do it justice. But my kids are making fun of me, and it was. You get excited. And I was excited. My daughter shot her first buck this year with me in the tree stand first morning. That was probably better than any of my own experiences.
Can't beat it.
And Lon, I would say you being around the guys at this table, you've done a lot for all three of us to put us in those positions to get opportunities. As successful as a hunter as you've been, and you've had your share of success, you've done your part to, put Buck in a spot where he's going to be successful. I know you've, taken me out, spent time with me, taught us some of the stuff that we know today.
Getting the bug to bite you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just you've experienced it, you've enjoyed it. Now you're doing that with your kids. And
Oh, and it's that's that. Like I say, that's been more fun than any of my own hunts.
no, it's part of the joy.
Can't top it.
Oh, you can't.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's your kid or
Yeah.
just a little guy.
Yeah.
Like you were.
Yeah.
These
It's,
guys were.
You can still call us little.
I,
Little.
I haven't had the opportunity to take anyone else's kid out. With having three of my own. Like I'm pretty
That's a
well.
full-time job.
I'm a full-time
Yeah.
job. With obviously Mason. He's he'll be 16 this year. He's been hunting on his own for 2 years though because he don't want to hunt with dad. Like
I
dad
get it.
That's don't know nothing.
Dad don't know nothing, that's dragging you down kind of thing, you're too much scent in the woods, whatever. He's got all his
Never heard that before.
yeah, he's got all his hey, and you know what? That's fine, but like my daughter, she's all about it. She's like, Dad, I hunt with you, And I got two daughters, so one hunts with mom, one hunts with dad. And that wasn't even like a draw straw kind of thing. The older one's like, I'm hunting with dad.
Yeah.
This isn't even a debate. You told the other one, like, we're not even debating this. I hunt with dad.
That's so cool.
You know.
It's cool when you got people that look to you that way, as well.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I wanna thank you for. I mean, we could sit here and we could talk for hours, and we still might, but I want to thank you for.
I told you when we started, we're going to cover everything. We're going to be here. Like my wife said, see you on Monday.
Well, I really appreciate you, just taking the time, not just to come hang out, but to share some of these, your perspective on these stories as well, because you lend your version of some of the tales that this guy's heard. Like a lot of us, we walked through a lot of these stories together, and there are a ton of them that we haven't even touched on. But I just want to thank you for taking the time to come on. We'll probably post this. I'll let you know when it gets published, but we'll go through, we'll do what editing we have to do to sync all the video and audio up, and then I'll send you a note, say, hey, check it out. But you're welcome to come on anytime that you want, and what we need to do is we really need to, reconnect and try to, create space to do some of this outdoor stuff,
Right.
Hang out with your kids and sort of, you can't ever look back, and memories are good because they've created and built us into who we are today. But we always want to be looking forward to the next generation and how can we impact them, and what do these stories do for the hunter today, or the guy that's never tried to go hunting or fishing or anything like that. So we want to encourage that behavior. So, any final thoughts from you before we close this down?
No, I think it's just good sitting down and hearing stories and kind of recalling, loosely reliving some of them, and getting a little bit more truths, and getting
More
another
details.
perspective.
Just talking about some of these stories, my legs hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think my ears
Yeah.
bleeding a little bit too, and
Uh-huh.
just talking about some of it. So
All right. Well, listen, appreciate all you guys that are listening or watching online. We are Tracks and Tackle. You can find us anywhere that you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube. Find us at Tracks and Tackle or at Mentzer Outdoors. And we always want to remember you guys, nature is your playground. I want you to stay wild.